Greetings and salutations, and welcome to Radio Dayz, a podcast radio program that delves into the world of terrestrial radio. Its DJs and on-air personality, and you, all fans of radio as a medium. Here's your host, Ron.
Hello and welcome to Radio Dayz The Podcast. You can hear this podcast on Buzzsprout, as well as all the major podcast platforms like Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also watch this podcast via YouTube, and you can also check it out at ronrobinsonstudios.com. In this episode, which is brought to you by Brian Allure from Team 71 Mortgage Group and Radio Dayz the movie, we're going to take a dive into the new Cobra Radio. So what is Cobra Radio, you ask? Well, if you've been on social media lately, you've likely seen some video clips promoting this new radio movement. But to help me find out what all the hubbub is about, I've been fortunate enough to score this man responsible for last week's soft launch of Cobra Radio, former WABX jock and one of the people responsible for creating and launching the historic 89X. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Muchacho himself, Greg St. James. Greg, how are you, sir?
I have to get that tattoo, Mr. Muchacho. I like it. It's actually Radio Cobra.
I'm sorry.
I've got it wrong too, and I named the sucker. So what can I tell you? But it's Radio Cobra Detroit. Dive is the right word. We'll take a dive into what we're doing here. We did a soft launch on Memorial Day in Detroit. It is a 21st century next gen concept, and with all that entails, it's a whole new ballgame, whole new learning experience. I'm actually sitting outside, so if you hear dogs, what can I tell you?
It's the wildlife.
The neighbor has like 7 Snoopies across the street.
Right on.
At any rate, I'll give you a little bit of the genesis of it, because I assume that's what you would like to know.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
And I've been asked, and then I want to make sure I do shout outs to our team. When 89X ended, when I invented that thing with Lex Cooney and the late Lem Payne, and we were all sitting around 1990 coming up with it, I thought it'll be about 2, maybe 3 year run. I figured, how long is this music going to last, really? I mean, it's probably not going to go too far. So I signed a 2-year contract because I'm a freaking idiot, and the thing lasted 30 years. So hey, this shows you how smart I am. But when it ended, we were doing a wake, actually, like kind of an online Zoom call wake thing during the pandemic in 2020. I think it was after that, but anyway, I know it was pandemic time, and we started talking, and it's the Rod Serling question: picture an alternate universe. What if we had the original team had kind of stayed there, and it hadn't? What if I'd written a longer contract? What if it had evolved sort of the way we had thought it might? It did what it did, and that's great. But what might it look like or sound like or be like now? What's a 21st century, a next gen, which I think is the buzz phrase these days? What's the next gen version of this thing? And so, we're building a flying saucer, and we aren't quite sure how to fly it yet. We're right now kind of going around in circles, bumping into things, but it's cool. It's a trip. And so it is a 21st century online, digital, multi-platform. Because here's the thing, radio that you and I know, and probably anybody listening to this podcast or watching us has some love for or experience with this business. It was always about, when I started, you had to have an FCC license. You had to take plate voltage readings, and I don't know what the statute of limitations are, but I faked that shit for years, just like that, whatever. Fine, sign the log, man, I don't care. But now, technology has revolutionized, democratized, for better or worse. It's a brave new world. And so the learning curve, the challenge, the interest of mine and our team has been to see, what does that look like? How does that play out? What do we do with that? I'm not entirely sure yet. I do know that there's a huge gap amongst music lovers and music listeners for something I can listen to, and something we're kind of aimed at the 40 to whatever age range. I know that I can't get my kids to listen to anything that has the word radio in it. It's not going to happen. But maybe with some cool, there are kids listening to vinyl and stuff, so maybe they'll find some of this too. And the music is can I swear on this?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
The music is fucking great, man. It really is. You know, and I got to give a lot of shout out. Here's our team. Jennifer St. James, who is my wife, but she is a music, just a music aficionado. She really, she goes to more concerts than I do. I'm like, yeah, you go, honey. I'm old, man. I can't go out every night. She's our program director. She's doing the 21st Century Night Service, the evening show. She's really put in thousands and thousands of hours trying to make the gizmos work together and you have to download every song and edit songs and there's a lot of digital stuff you got to do. It isn't like slapping a platter on a table and queuing it up. And she has really worked hard on bringing the vision to fruition. We've got a guy named Terry Phillips, who's a production genius. Prod Nation is his company. We're partnered, associated with New Radio Media. They're the Streamcast company. Alan over there, Buzz Van Houten's over there. Paul Bensman runs the company. Great guy.
NRM Streamcast. I think it's NRM Streamcast. Yeah.
NRM Streamcast, yeah, which is why I call Radio Cobra Detroit the world's first stream punk and funk station. So
I'm excited because of who's doing it. It's one thing to have an internet radio station, and we're going to talk about some of the things that you'll hear if you tune in or when you tune in. But I'm excited about it because when you got into radio, Greg, and your generation of radio personalities is to me the Mount Rushmore, because you guys were doing radio when radio
we're about the same age as those guys. Is that what you're saying?
No. I'm not that much younger, but I'm just saying I grew up listening because I didn't get into radio till I was 30. So my 20s. Yeah. But my point is, when you got the radio you guys were doing back in the early days, before there was all these rules and formats, you guys would play what you thought people would want to hear. And it's a lot different. It's even in the 80s and 90s when it was probably at its peak. I think radio was done in the 70s. Wow.
Yeah, we kind of played what we wanted to hear.
Yeah.
I mean, that was always I got into it, and most of us, Steve Costin and I were college roommates. We lived in a house together, with like 9 other guys. I think I've told the story before. I had a cot by the washing machine. Steve had a nice room upstairs. So, bastard, Costin. But we've been friends for, 50 years, however long it's been, 40 years. I don't know. Time goes by. But we were doing stuff that made us happy. We were all a bunch of frustrated rock musicians. Steve was a guitar player, still is. I was a singer and a crappy guitar player, and then nobody was ever going to pay me to be in a band. We had a band, but we lost money on it. But I found out that radio was like the adjacent. It was like the closest you could get to being in a band if you really didn't have the musical chops. And in those days, that's why I didn't get in. And I, in my career, met a lot of the satin jacket crowd, I call them, people that could just go on and on about call letters this and call letter that. And these guys ended up being the format guys, which I could give a shit, honestly. I really can't. Because if you love music, and I think what we're finding out with Radio Cobra Detroit now, we've been on for a week and a half, whatever it's been, not even that, really, with the soft launch. We're about 3,000 listeners, give or take. I mean, it's weird. I'm looking at the stats. It's not like the old days. You can see kind of real time. Oh, look, somebody popped up in LA. I wonder who it is. I don't know. So it's a little different. But these are people that are kind of early adapters and are there for the music, because we say less talk, more snake. There's not a lot of yakety yak. We're going to add a lot of stuff. We got some really cool stuff in the pipeline. But I want to finish going through the team because I'll get yelled at if I don't. So we got Chuck Santoni, former Air Ace, with me over at WABX. We have Carrie Bertrand, who was one of my original 89X hires, a Canadian woman who was just, she's probably one of the coolest people I ever met. A little spacey. She has concepts that blow my mind. She's playing with AI now. She's doing our overnight.
It's a whole new world with that AI. I've been learning. It's scary. It's nervy.
It's freaking me out a little bit. Well, I said for years, I did voiceover. I still freelance for C-SPAN television. I did a lot of television here. I'm sitting in Washington, D.C. area right now at my home. I always said, if they teach the coffee machine to talk, we're all screwed. Well, guess what?
They're teaching it to talk.
They've got robots doing some of the voiceover work now, So
you just mentioned it. I want to throw this in here because this isn't the first time Greg's been on the podcast. If you haven't heard episode 31 from season 2, I believe it was in March of 2022, go back. we take a dive into Greg's career in broadcasting, and you can hear how he ended up at C-SPAN. So if you want to hear about Greg's career, go check out that podcast. Go ahead. What
and that was the one. That was the one where Tom Cruise played me on the podcast, right? Yeah.
Well, that's when I was just doing audio only, so I didn't start doing the video until season 3. So.
That's right. So but
go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask you before we get into the meat and potatoes of what Cobra Radio or Radio Cobra is. Talk about how, because to me, branding is so key. How did you guys come up with the Cobra and all that?
That's a great question. Well, first of all, let me give you an aside, then I'll tell you where it comes from. There was a radio guy. I'm not going to mention his name. I wouldn't give him the time of day. But a radio guy that, when we were talking about this, really wanted to take this idea to radio. He ended up kind of doing his own version of it. And I gave him the Godfather speech: as long as your business doesn't interfere with mine, I don't care. Go do your thing. But he brought an early demo of this to some radio consultant guy whose question was, well, what does a venomous snake have to do with this music? I'm like, why the fuck does Keith Richards dress like a pirate, you asshole? It's rock and roll, man.
Doesn't have to make sense, man.
Why do I wear a skull ring everywhere? I used to wear this when I was at EMT on duty, and it would rip through the gloves and scare patients. But that's a whole other podcast. But the Cobra thing was partly a homage to the Detroit Cobras. And
I thought it might be.
Partly, not entirely. I just thought they were a wonderful, and of course the late Rachel. She was a Detroit rock and roll chick, man, and that's a Detroit rock. Now they've got a new singer, and that's cool. It wasn't really, it's not just their format, or anything. But I thought, okay, that's Detroit. And when I was a kid, I was a 14-year-old kid in Warren, Michigan. That's where I went to high school, Warren Mott. And I would walk to high school every day. And there was a guy, he had a 69 Shelby Cobra GT 500 parked out front. And I would look at that car. And he had the sticker in there. I think it was like $3,500 he paid for that, which it might as well have said $2 million to me. I was 14 years, $3,500. Who has that kind of money? Oh, my God, man. And Cobra Power. I don't know. It's fucking cool.
Well, I have to tell you.
End of story.
I have to tell you, and this is why I'm pumped for this new movement, because it is a movement. If you ask me, because it's not just the music, but I'm looking forward to the bumpers and things like that you come up with Cobra Radio that play between the music. Because is there going to be any of that? I should ask you.
Oh, there is. Yeah, it's there now. We have.
But I'm saying you can get real creative with the Cobra aspect of it.
There's a lot of stuff in the pipeline. I mean, you can do too much too soon, too fast, and kind of just dilute the brand. But there is, it's the Summer of the Snake Muchacho, which is a deliberate hark back. When I launched 89X, it was the Summer of the X Muchachos. And somebody asked me the other day, well, where'd you come up with Muchacho? I'm sure I was like drinking tequila or some shit in 1990. And who knows? Because when we launched that was me and Mike Halloran
Mike Halloran, another great Mike Halloran. Yeah, I love him.
Well, Mike and I go back forever, and we were hanging out in San Diego, where I used to spend a lot of time. And I do recall sitting in some dive bar with Mike somewhere. I don't think it was in Tijuana. It could have been, probably La Jolla. Because Mike's sort of an upscale dive guy, you know what I mean? A La Jolla biker. Go figure that out. So the guy's got a Harley.
Little sidebar, Mike Halloran, I did interview him for my movie, and I think it was the longest interview I did because we both went off on these extreme talents. I think we sat down for almost 3 hours, Greg. It was crazy.
Yeah, that's saying hello to Mike in 3 hours. Yeah, it is. But I think that's probably where that all kind of came from. And because, we were hanging out in San Diego and LA, and it was trying to move some of that, in those days I had a lot of hair and pointy shoes that I bought on Melrose and wore leather with chains. And I don't know, I thought I was some badass guy, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Maybe. You think you're a badass till you get divorced the first time, and your wife's ex-wife's lawyer explains to you that you're a broke badass now, Jack. So.
Check your ego. So let's talk about the meat and potatoes of Radio Cobra.
Right.
Talk about, like you mentioned, Jennifer is doing a lot of the legwork as far as editing and put the music together. I guess this could go back when you were a PD at ABX, and then of course when you brought out historic 89X. What's the process of how you pick music for the station?
Well, that's a really good question, and so I've kind of taken the role, sort of, and I really see this more TV, but in traditional radio terms, Jen is the PD, I'm the GM. We're bringing in, I'm going to give away a piece of news here, which has not been released yet, but by the time this podcast hits, hopefully it will. Greg Gniperish from 89X is joining us, and will bring his musical knowledge. Most of the music has been collaboratively decided on. Jen is really responsible for a lot of. She was a fanatic listener to 89X after I left, so she's got some knowledge that I don't. Because I walked away when my contract ended, I was not real happy with those guys. I didn't listen for a few years.
I can't imagine.
Like,
I can imagine.
I ain't listening to you. So I was like, "What did I miss, man? What were they playing?" And she's younger than I am by a lot, so she's bringing some of that music. The Detroit stuff is as much as we can get. We listen to it, we like it, we put it on. We're playing. I'm a fan of Bazooka Jones, and now they're the new old good sound, gritty guitars and stuff. Johnny B's, Murder Hornets, Jimmy McCarty, Lori and the Darlings, who I've never seen them live. I got to go see them. I just love their thing. The Detroit Cobras, of course. Anything we can find that's Detroit, that's produced well, that we can play. Then my deal, my ed was the funk. So we're rocking the house and funk in the trunk.
So yes, George Clinton, we're going to hear some George Clinton then?
Yeah, we played George Clinton. We played the Parliaments. We played P-Funk. We played Roller Coaster from the OJs. I don't care, man. It's like, it's the power of the big beat. That's what we're sort of all about. It's the beats, the beats, the beat. With a lot of Prince. So the DNA of this thing was ABX, 89X, and the Midnight Funk Association.
You brought the Midnight Funk Association, yes.
The MFA, baby, come on. If I could find Mojo, I'd kiss him and say, "Hey, you want a job? Come on, man." I don't know where he is.
He was one that I reached out to a lot of people because I thought it would be a fine to have him in my documentary, but he's a recluse. But you mentioned ABX, and now you got 3 jocks, including yourself. They're going to be on, this new internet station. Yeah. It's not lost on you how, like, when you look at Facebook, one of the biggest groups is the WABX tribute group. And that's not lost on you, is it?
No, it's not. On the other hand, though, I don't want to just play Procol Harum, although we played it already on Radio Cobra. It's not this ain't a nostalgia thing. And I'm not a believer in sitting around talking about the glory days. And hey, remember 40? We're playing The Cure, which is the biggest tour of the summer right now. I wanted to go see them. I can't afford a fucking ticket to see The Cure. Come on, man. I don't have $600 to sit on the lawn, But how long ago was The Cure? Those guys started in 76, 78, kind of. Robert Smith was playing guitar for Susie and the Banshees, and then started The Cure, I think, in really kind of the version we know in 78. How long ago was that? Holy shit. That was 45 years ago? So
that would be too old for classic rock right now.
Yeah, I know, right. So, I mean, these labels start not making a lot of sense, but, I'm part of the DNA of this, and I was just talking to him yesterday, and I will see him end of the month. I'll be in San Francisco. Is Dan Carlisle, who was my mentor. The reason I got
another
into
great
radio,
ABX jock, absolutely.
And I don't know if did I tell the story how I met Dan last time?
I would love to hear it. Go ahead, tell me.
All right. Well, I went to the seminary to become a disc jockey. That's the actual truth. I was 16 years old. That would have been 1972. And my mother kind of wanted me to be a priest, a nice Catholic boy, right? And so they had a weekend for young men that were thinking about the priesthood at Sacred Heart Major Seminary. And I went that weekend. Of course, when they explained the big rule, I was like, I'm a Newton.
No mas. Time out.
No what? No. How about once Fridays? Every other Tuesday? Come on.
After I eat my fish sandwich?
Yes, come on. Work with me. But my roommate, because they randomly assigned young men, it was for men 16 to whatever age, was a guy named Dan Carlisle, who was, and Dan has allowed me to tell the story, he was thinking about being a priest as well. But he was on ABX. I'm like, holy shit, my roommate is this guy I listen to, I think is like the coolest guy in the world. Well, Dan, who was, God bless him, was openly gay. It was an out gay man. They wouldn't allow that. If you were a closeted gay man, they would have signed you up and
different
joined
time.
the club.
Different time,
different time, different place. So the Holy Mother Church's loss was not much of a loss, probably from their perspective. Was somehow we ended up. Dan and I drove around. I remember that night. And he was a perfectly nice guy, drinking brandy and talking about ABX. He taught me how to say ABX, and and we've been friends ever since. And then, so I was 16, and so it'd been like what 6 years later. I got out of college. I was 22, and I was working at ABX. So it was like,
well, I
wow.
bring ABX up, and I brought the group up because it's not about nostalgia for me. That's not how I look at it. Although I understand that. To me, it was a time and place. We talk about a different time and place where I think it is so popular because people appreciate it. You know, I think Ken Calvert said to me one time when he was talking about WABX is like, we don't care about the ratings. That's who we are. That's who we are.
Well, that's
but
true.
my point is Radio Cobra is going to be, is that going to be like, okay, you pick the music you play, Chuck picks the music he plays. Is that how it's going to be?
Well, it's not yet exactly. That's a good question. Because of the nature of the technology right now, it is voice tracked because we will start doing some live stuff, but you know, I mean, somebody asked me, how do you do 12 hours a day, 7 days a week?
It takes a half hour, right? Yeah.
I sit in the fucking studio. No, we don't. So, yeah, we are in each person's show. They're adding music. There'll be more of that. But there is kind of a consistent, like, I hate to use the word format, but it is a format. There is a consistent body of music, and I don't even know what the number of songs. I just know because it's digital how much storage space we got left. Yeah, and we bought the plan with a lot of storage
right.
space, so we have room to grow. I can tell you that, like, well, you probably know better than I don't know what's the current classic rock library, and I love Fred Jacobs. I work with Fred. I was sitting at his kitchen table the day not the day, but when he was inventing classic rock. It was called Good Time Rock and Roll, and it was based on the Big Chill movie. That's where Fred, genius guy, and I love him and
Tom
Paul
Bender,
and Tom Bender, smart guy, and Paul and Bill, the Jakes, great guys. I mean, I know all those cats. But what is that classic rock library? I don't know, 700, 800 songs.
That seems high to me.
It might be less. Well, there's about 500, I think, in their super core stuff. And then this started out with conversations. It was going to be kind of like a classic alternative radio format. And then I started dealing with those radio guys, and they were just, well, you can't do this. And why is it going to be named after a snake? And why would you play rap? And it's like, fuck you. You know, excuse me, but I'm a
good music is
guy.
good music.
Yeah, exactly. Chuck Santoni was saying that we had him write a little bio for us, and he wrote, there's two kinds of music, good and bad. I would kind of use the Townsman Zant formulation, which is great. There's the blues, everything else is zippity doodah, which is
yummy. Yeah.
Well, it's just, it's shit.
Yeah.
And I do believe that you get in any kind of media, whether it be radio, whether it be a video, any platform. I've lived long enough to know you get who you program to. If you program stupid shit, you program dumb news and misinformation, you'll get people that want that. And that's scary and dangerous. I'm not sure how dangerous listening to bad music is. I just don't want to hang out with you.
I hear that.
So, and I think our goal is to, I think I said this. It is like I really feel we're the kids that found the flying saucer, and we're trying to figure out how it flies.
That's a good analogy. That's a great analogy.
And that's that is what Radio Cobra is. It's this. I don't know, what does this gizmo do?
Let me ask you this, Greg, because something that sometimes I feel like get off my lawn guy because I'm listening to Bad Company and Triumph rather than the stuff that's playing now. So I kind of cheat myself out of some of the new music. Is there any new music out there that you think's worth a shit right now? And if so, talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of it. I like Muse. I like Fall Out Boy. Some of those bands have been around for a while. The list, there's a long list of the stuff that we're playing. The new Foo Fighters just rocks my world, man. Now, again, they're not really new, but
they're still putting out good new music.
Yeah, it's brand new music, even though it's just guitars and drums and good vocals. But, I mean, you turn that shit. I put this on, and people say, I don't know how to work it. We will do an app. All this stuff takes time. You have to finish the website structure first. They're explaining to me. Then the app is based on that, blah, blah, blah. It's going to take a while. But you can still, right now, RadioCobraDetroit.com. You put it on your phone, you plug it into your Apple Player or your whatever you play in your car. You can drive around with it. It's a radio station, dude. You know, Bill, I can't figure. I had a guy. I don't know what I said. Well, what's your browser? What's a browser? Said, if I'm tech support, you are fucked. You are really fucked.
That's funny.
You know, I said, go ask your kid. I don't have a kid. Ask your next door neighbor. Leave me alone. Come on, it's not that hard. If you can, you know, work a digital phone, you can work this radio station into your use it. And the philosophy is use it how you want, where you want, anywhere, any way you want. There's not one way to do it, and that is the new world that we live in. But there's a ton of music, and we're gonna discover it together. And that was a real, I guess, mental breakthrough for me when I decided, hey, I don't just want to do a nostalgia oldies station of playing, you know, iconic alt, somebody's calling it that, or classic alternative, or yeah, you could do that, and that might, I don't know, maybe that'll work. Maybe some people like that, but I mean, I hear some of those songs in the supermarket.
Well, that's the other thing is I ask you that because to me, there's no better feeling than introducing new music that rocks to somebody, and it doesn't seem to happen as much as it used to. That's why I'm looking really forward to Radio Cobra.
Well, I think there's a lot of it there. You know, what's kind of neat, and we'll see as we explore. We're not doing front sells and back sells. We'll say new music in front of something new. We'll say Detroit. It was my, excuse me, outside the smoke.
There's a lot of pollen. Yeah.
Well, pollen and smoke. It's fun. But it's just good for your lungs. But we have a Detroit goal horn, which I came up with that one. So when we play like a Detroit artist, it's like Radio Cobra Detroit, and then you know. But so I want to play local stuff that you know doesn't get played. And it was very gracious. Doug Podell said, "Oh, congratulations." I'm like, "Hey, Doug, you should be playing Johnny B. Come on, man." You got to stick. So
it's sad because you and Doug, you know, Doug, and there was a few others among you that really were advocates and right there in the front for local Detroit bands where other parts of the country weren't playing it.
I am absolutely sure if Doug had his druthers, he would.
Sure.
It's not Doug.
It's just different. Yeah. He's got people he needs to answer to. Yes.
Yeah. He has to work for the Suits, and I don't. You know, I got to work for the Cobra. I work for the Snake, not the Suits, baby.
Love it.
So yeah, that is the whole point of this. Is let's discover some new music together. Let's discover what a next gen radio station is. I don't know yet. It certainly has been a labor of love and money out of my pocket so far with some partners. NRM has helped out some, and I've been, my accountant keeps looking at me going, "What the fuck are you doing?" It's like, it's a write-off, right? We can write this off. You know, but the cost of entry is still nothing compared to the millions of dollars, which is part of the thing you and I know, and we could talk about forever. What fucked up radio to begin with was these idiots at Clear Channel and other places leveraging insane amounts of money to buy up stations, and then they have to make that money back in 1 quarter, and you can't do it. So fire all the DJs, fire all the staff, you know. And I'm not a fan of the Radio Jack and Radio Bob and Radio Dave.
To me, that was the worst, because not only did you play generic music that you could play in a jukebox, but you got rid of the DJ and you got rid of the personality. You got rid of those, you know.
Well, and you give, to me, I mean, that's sort of again, it's a throwback, I'll grant you, but Radio Cobra, the Snake, it's the summer of the Snake, and we're doing Snake takes, and there's a lot of branding there. So there is a personality to the station,
yes,
which is all imaginary, but the way it comes alive is through the voices and the passion of the actual humans, not some made up. I mean, of course, I'm the guy that was like bummed out when I found out Tommy Bahama was fake. I'm like, what?
Tommy Bahama.
Oh no, I thought it was a real guy sitting in, you know, some Caribbean island smoking cigars, wearing a straw hat.
Well, that was something
it's all bullshit. Oh man,
that was something I was going to ask you about. I'm glad you brought that back up, because you talked about your muchacho. You and I believe Jennifer made several small snippet videos talking about the soft launch, talking about the summer of the Snake, and it grew like wildfire. So where everybody was making like impromptu videos, and that's exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, we call them snake takes.
Nice.
Which you can make one too.
I'm gonna make one.
Say, here's who I am. Promote your business. What the heck? Doesn't hurt. And welcome to the Summer of the Snake.
I'm gonna do one.
And so, at some point, we may figure out a way to make that a little bit of a give somebody a prize. We're working on merch. There will be Radio Cobra merch. We know that.
I need to get me a hat because I want to wear it during my podcast. So I want to get one of those.
There you go. Yeah, T-shirts, hats, jock straps, lingerie, lawnmowers, whatever people want, man.
I need to get a flag for my boat to hang the Summer of the Snake. Radio Cobra.
What and you can print it out from our website. There is the
logo,
that. which is the QR code, which takes you, if you take a picture of that QR code opens up the radio station, and that QR code will be on the merch. Also, that is the way we're going to be doing other kind of contesting and stuff. We'll be advertising. There are ways we will monetize it. There will be merch. There's going to be, I will give this away as well, or let this out of the bag. There will be Cobra Joe morning coffee. Cobra Coffee. Again, selling advertising on a digital platform like this, it's not like we're not going to have 8 minutes of spots. And as Chuck says, we won't yell at you to be the 15th caller to win some shit. That's another secret. When we used to do that, you will take the 101st caller when I went to Riff. Do you actually think I counted? I would wait 5 minutes and say, okay, you're caller 99.
This is what I would do. I would say, you're caller number 1. You're caller number 8. You're calling number 24. You're calling number 75. Yeah.
You work too hard, man. I would always make sure before I told them they won that they sounded excited. If they were just like, did I win anything? No, fuck you. You lost. Whatever. Sue me.
Let me ask you this. Obviously, the soft launch is in the history books. You're a week and a half in. You're looking for bigger things. You're improving it every day. What do you see what's this going to look like when your vision has totally come to fruition?
I don't know. That's a great question, and I've asked myself that. I honestly don't know what it looks like, and that's why it's fun to do. We will have the website will be much more robust. There will be Cobra Casts, which are our podcasts. Perhaps you'd like us to also have your stuff available.
Crossover, yes.
Yeah, crossover. That's exactly part of the deal. Chuck Santoni is going to do songs and stories. That's a Cobra Cast, which is a fucking podcast, but we brand it. Talking about what he was doing. And all the guys, I think he'll have guests sort of like you do. Talking about stories of, he gave me the great example of when the Who was in town once. They borrowed Ted Nugent's sound system and then they skipped town without paying him, which I think is great.
Well, it's funny you say that. A little sidebar, Greg, because I think a good podcast would be to have you on, not necessarily to talk about your career, but do a whole podcast about all the crazy experiences you had while rubbing elbows with, Kiss or Van Halen, or it's like, because everybody has a tons of stories,
Yeah, I think that's kind of what this is going to be. I think Chuck may be the host of it, and we'll see how that goes. And then we have a couple other things like that in the works. Gnip, when he comes on with us, is a bartender, so we're going to do happy hour with Gnip, which that's awesome. I think I could find a sponsor for that, probably.
I think a couple.
I can think of one or two. But and he'll be doing like how to make a Singapore sling with, how much vodka, whatever. I'm not a cocktail guy, but I'm just a straight old wino. But that kind of thing. We'll be doing a snake and bake at 4:20 in the afternoons. There's. Yeah, which I know some people are right there. I'm into that, dude. It's like, you don't need my permission at 4:20. You don't have to wait till 4 o'clock. You can do whatever you want to do. So I think that we have that kind of stuff coming up, but the focus is, and the vision is, it's the music. Can we get people hearing things they haven't heard before, particularly the local stuff, because hyper local, even though, and my other slogan is we'll rock your world anywhere in the world, you can take this any place, it's Detroit in the DNA.
Because that's what I think's lacking from radio today is the introduction to good music. Because, like I said, I've almost cut myself off from anything that happened after 1995, and I think that's to my detriment as a music lover. I love what Silk Sonic did. That was something new, and I was very excited about that. But my point is I'm looking forward to listening to a radio station that's going to do that work for me. You mentioned Mike Halloran. He was infamous for introducing people to new music, yourself included. Mike, that's what I'm looking forward to from Radio Cobra.
Well, it's kind of how it works. Mike would turn me on to something, then I would turn you on to something, and then you're going to turn somebody else on to something, and that's how we share. I think the digital online world has accelerated that process, maybe not in the best possible way, because you can start a band, record something, have a hit, and be done all in one day.
Right.
Tomorrow you're an oldies act already. So, that was yesterday. That was on TikTok. I can tell you we won't be. I did have an argument with a guy when we were developing this who was trying to tell me, well, Tom Petty is an alternative act, right? I said, no, alternative was an alternative. Tom Petty. But we did start talking, and Dan Carlisle helped me expand my vision to say, we're not strictly alternative. We are playing, we're playing rock and roll. I won't play Tom Petty just because you can hear him everywhere else in the world, But I mean, I would say never. We play Robert Plant. We play, we play the Beatles. We play stuff that's in the DNA. Would you play the funk? Would you play some soul?
You mentioned Robert Plant. My wife's a big fan of what he's been doing with Alison Krauss over the last several years.
Absolutely, and I think he's relevant because he's stayed relevant, and he's still playing great music, making great new music. If you've seen his,
I think your dog wants to hear some Radio Cobra.
That's the neighbor's dog. My dog is at Doggy Spa Day today.
Oh, nice!
My goodness,
nice.
Yeah, nice, huh? He has a better life than I do. Yeah. but so what we've got here is the ability, I think, to break local music and reinforce. You don't need me to bring you the Foo Fighters. You would find that. But to hear a Foo Fighters new record in the context of this morning, I played that, and then I got a Thompson Twin song and a Joe Jackson Breaking Us in Two, and then we did These Boots Are Made for Walking, done by Bazooka Jones, the Detroit band, doing their version of that. So it is, somebody described Radio Cobra as eclectic and schizophrenic, and I said, hey, all of us in my head resemble that remark, but it is a little bit of all of those things. And I think the vision will be, ideally, we need to grow the listenership. That's our goal now. I mean, we have, I think, around 3,000 listeners, give or take. It's hard to tell. But sometimes there's 5 people listening. Sometimes there's 50. I'd like to see that grow. It would be easier to do with a stick. And who knows? Maybe one of these days.
You never know.
Well, I've said I don't think it's ready yet, and I wouldn't try and do it yet, but it will be. We know what we're doing. We're a bunch of pros. And there are guys out there that are sucking wind.
Yes.
You know what? It wouldn't be that hard to flip the switch, boyos. Wouldn't be that hard at all. And if you want
instant ratings.
Instant ratings, and it wouldn't cost you a fucking nickel, you dipshits.
Here's another thing I want to ask you about, because obviously you're going to be about introducing new music but it's just going to be good music. But I want to ask you, you've got 3 ABX jocks, some other. Is there a wish list of people that you'd like to bring on as you improve this product?
Well, we have 2 ABX jocks last time I checked. Me and Chuck.
Okay. I thought. Anyway, go ahead. But yeah.
Yeah, Kerry is an 89X.
Okay,
jock.
My bad. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Gnep, when he joins us, is an 89X jock. So that's a balance.
Gnep, I thought he was at ABX as well. So sorry,
I'm trying to think who did I not hire? Wait a minute, am I supposed to
my point is there a wish list of somebody that you'd like to bring on down the road?
Yes, there's a couple of them.
You don't want to let me know, but yeah.
Well, they haven't said formally
sure.
Yes. So I think I have a certain old roommate that I think would be a perfect fit. Speaking of ABX jocks, the kid who's older than me, for Christ's sake. But
he's looking good over at PBS these days.
We've talked, and I think we'll find. I think when he's ready, the door's open. He knows it. I'm sure we'll do something. And we talked about doing a blues show, maybe. Yeah, I know. Passman would be great if he wants to do something with us. That'd be fine. I'm very open-minded to hearing from anybody that has something they'd like to do, and they don't have to be somebody I know. It could be somebody I don't know. I will say this because I love disc jockeys. My Lord, I've been a disc jockey since I was 16. Started in high school right after I met Carlisle. But we put it on Memorial Day. By the very next day, within 24 hours, I'd heard from 5 guys looking for a job.
That's awesome.
Hey, you hiring? It's like, no, I'm not hiring, you idiot.
I'm trying to pay myself. Man. Calm down. Let's get this rocking first.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, sure. Send me.
O'Leary would love this. O'Leary would love this.
Well, and that's partly what you asked where this came from. Partly was thinking about John, and we will. I believe I want to say it's July 28th is his birthday, and we will do, I think that's the date. I got to double check that. Actually, Costan gave me his birthday. We are going to do a tribute to John in some form or fashion. I'm not going to play George fucking Harrison all day long, though. I'm sorry, John, wherever you are, I ain't doing that. Well, maybe we'll play a George Harrison song, but we'll remember John, who was an ABX jock, and he was the only old guy that I heard at 89X, and he didn't know shit about the music. God, he knew nothing about alternative. But I thought he'd be fun, he'd be great, and he was. It was a learning curve for John, though. That he's like, I never heard of any of these bands, Greg. It doesn't matter, John. Just fucking play with them on the list.
So share us again how people can tune in to Radio Cobra.
RadioCobraDetroit.com. That's all you have to do. There's a Facebook page, Radio Cobra Detroit, and that also has links on it. But if you put in your browser, which is a thingamajob on your gizmo that does stuff, it's all one word, Radio Cobra Detroit, no spaces, .com. That will open it up, and then you press, there's a little arrow thing. It's like a play button. You press that, and it plays. And you can listen to it on any kind of device. I know that there are some very weird technical issues people have. Well, my browser was made by the Mossad, and you can only listen to it in a safe house. I don't know if that shit works. But your Chrome, Firefox, the usual.
But you're going to make an app coming up, right? That's coming.
Yeah, as I was saying, we have to finish the website, and then it takes a while. And this is more of an Apple thing. I think we will also throw the stream on NRM's Streamcast as well very soon. As soon as they're ready, they're partnered with us, so it'll be available that way. Cool. So I figured the soft launch really is 30 days because it's kind of like I don't know if you've ever gone to a restaurant soft launch. I've gone to a couple of them, and the menu's all screwed up, and the servers, you don't expect perfection,
right?
So I ask people to have a little patience with us as the
rehearsals. If it's a play, it's a rehearsal. A live rehearsal where people can come and check it out.
Yeah, we're in Cincinnati right now, or Akron. God help us. I don't think we have any listeners in Akron. I'd like to double check. If we'll see. Get the fuck out of Ohio. Move to Michigan. Move somewhere. Go. Just get out.
Get out of that. You can move to a real state. So is there anything I didn't ask you that I should have, Greg?
Oh, I'm sure there is, but I can't think of it. Other than, if you got music, you go to Facebook, you'll see some contact information there, or go to the website. There's contact, RadioCobraDetroit.com. There's a contact button there. Go ahead and reach out to us. You can reach out to me or Jen. Yeah, I mean, we'll try and play stuff. I want to find a reason to say yes. So if it's any good, send it, man. If it's Detroit, I want to hear it.
Well, I'm very much looking forward to what becomes of Radio Cobra. I will be tuning in. I've been starving for a station like this. The fact that it's on the internet, it's a different world, and that's the venue that we're having this Radio Cobra. So I'm excited about what you're doing, man. Thank you.
It's the world we're in, brother. It's the world we're in. Ron, thank you very much as always, man. And let's get you on the Cobra Cast. It'll be all good.
Greg, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your story about Radio Cobra. I'm looking forward to this, and keep continued success, man. Keep building on it, brother.
Thank you very, very much for shouting out, and spread the word. Spread the word. Spread the word.
And I'm going to make one of those little Cobra videos. Thanks again to Greg St. James, and thank you for checking out Radio Dayz The Podcast. Today's show was brought to you by Team 71 Mortgage Group. You're looking to buy a house maybe refinance your home and have questions that need answers now, call Brian Allure, 810-444-6466. Today's show is produced by Ron Robinson Studios. If you need professional marketing videos, photography, headshots, maybe you need drone content from a licensed drone pilot, head over to ronrobinsonstudios.com. You can also hear previous episodes of this podcast there as well. And if you'd like to learn more about the upcoming documentary series about the history of radio, Radio Days, 101 Years of Radio, click on the Radio Days movie link under the documentaries tab at ronrobinsonstudios.com. Thanks for checking out the show. Hope you enjoyed it. Until next time.
You can't go. All the plants are going to die.